Effective communication is the cornerstone to all business. It doesn't matter if you're in the corporate world or in a professional services area and industry or networking. It's not just about getting your message across. It's actually about making sure that your message is heard and that you're making a connection with the individual. So today we're going to talk about 5 strategies around communicating, and not just communicating effectively, but making a connection with the individual that you are trying to converse with. Communication isn't just about what you say. It's about how it's received. Whether you're a business owner negotiating a deal, a corporate leader guiding a team, or a professional collaborating across functions, the way you communicate can either create alignment or cause confusion. Too often, we assume our message is clear when in reality, the person on the other end is interpreting it through their own lens. They're not actually hearing what you're saying. If you want to be an effective communicator, you need to adopt a new approach. That means knowing your audience, avoiding unnecessary jargon and flowery language, asking smart questions, truly listening, and using the right channels to get your messages across. Let's break down 5 ways to ensure your communication lands the way you want it to. So the first tip is to really know your audience and adjust your language. I've seen all too often where people are using flowery words or jargon, and they're speaking to somebody who is not in their area of expertise or even in their industry. And what's happening is they're not making that connection. So you really want to take a beat, think about, who am I talking to? So if you are somebody who's come out of, corporate sales, and you're used to talking to the CFO, and you feel that you've dumbed down what you're saying to that person who actually lives in your world, most likely lives in your company, and at least has the context of what you're talking about. And now you're trying to say the same thing to, let's say an accountant or a financial advisor, because in your mind, well, they're a finance person, they should be understanding me. The reality is they're probably not. So think about what you're saying. Know that you have to meet them where they're at. So when explaining your role, be mindful of your audience's background. For example, to a general audience, you might say, I work with companies to drive revenue goals by optimizing their go-to-market strategies in the sales organization. However, when speaking to a professional involved in mergers and acquisitions, you could elaborate and speak in a language that they could understand and say, for companies acquiring another company, I evaluate the marketing and sales strategies outlined in their strategic plans to determine if the projected impacts on the company's valuations are realistic or overly optimistic. So can you see from that example how what would work in one case, with the CFO of your organization may not work with the professional services provider, the lawyer, or the accountant. And you are saying the same thing. You're just tweaking what it is you're saying to the right audience. Now, the other thing is simplify complex business concepts. So I've been in environments where there's a teacher of a mastermind and they want to sound really smart, and they'll use a coined phrase for what they want their participants to do, because to them it makes them sound smart, but what it's really doing is it's confusing the participants. So an exact example is I was part of a mastermind group where the person who was teaching the course was encouraging these business owners to do a profit push. But the business owners didn't really understand what that entailed. So when they came to speak with me, I would say to them, okay, it's really taking a look at your revenue and your expenses. What areas of your revenue can you increase your activities around, or possibly shrink the activities and create passive ongoing income. But let's also take a look at your expenses. Let's do a self-audit. What vendors are you using that you've just been using for a long time that you can go back and negotiate with again? See how it's taking something that felt so complex and is really bringing it down to the person that you're engaging with, and then they're able to say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I do want to do that. That's a really good idea. Again, it's about connecting, not just communicating. And the other thing you can do is ask insightful questions. Oftentimes, I see when I'm at networking events, people will ask someone what they do. And if it's not straightforward, here we go again, attorney, doctor, lawyer. It's somebody who's in a niche area in a corporate environment, even compliance. Well, that's a pretty broad term. Take the time to ask some open-ended questions so that you can really further understand what they're doing. And the flip side is, if you're the person answering in the very flowery way that you sell yourself in your corporate environment, pause and ask that person, are you familiar with this? Is this something that you've come across before? Would you like me to explain it differently? So it's really open-ended questions and asking for feedback. The fourth area is sort of another step on what we just talked about, but it's active listening. If you didn't get a chance while you were asking open-ended questions to ask for feedback, here's where you can ask for feedback with active listening. So you want to lean in and make sure you're understanding what the other person is saying, because you may have said something and they didn't really connect with what you were saying, but they wanted to keep the conversation going. So they may deflect, they may go down a different path. If you're actively listening and you're checking in to hear what they heard you say, it gives you the opportunity to go back and restate what it is that you're trying to get across, or evaluate if it makes sense to continue down that path. But again, it's an ebb and flow. Last but not least, I want to talk about appropriate channels of communication. I get to work across multiple generations, so I see a lot of people leaning on text communication, and probably even more people leaning on email communication. And there's just so much that can get lost. I remember decades ago, when I had a boss say to me, your personality doesn't come across in your email. Imagine how much more of that is lost in text or WhatsApp. So if you're doing a business deal, if you want to have an important dialogue, if you want to talk about a project, pick up the phone, get on Zoom, have a conversation. Email is great to continue that conversation. And then in writing, if something doesn't make sense, clarify it, ask open-ended questions. Whatever you do, don't assume, because that will always create problems. Great communication isn't about speaking more. It's about making sure what you say is understood and acted upon. Whether you're leading a team, making a business case, or driving collaboration, your ability to tailor your language, simplify complex ideas, ask the right questions, listen actively, and choose the right platform makes all the difference in the world. When you master this, you don't just talk, you influence, align, and drive results.